My girlfriend cheated with my family member and wanted to keep seeing him even after I found out. My girlfriend Sophia and I were together for 3 years. We were both 28, lived together, talked about the future in that vague way people do when they're not quite ready to get engaged but assume it's heading there. We weren't married, but we built something I thought was solid. About 4 months before everything fell apart, something shifted. I couldn't name it at the time, but Sophia changed. Not in the way you'd expect if someone was cheating. She became more present, more affectionate, more engaged in our relationship than she'd been in months. She wanted to spend time together constantly. She initiated sex more often. She laughed easier. Her mood stayed consistently upbeat in a way that felt almost unnatural. But I didn't question it because who questions their partner being happy? I thought we'd turned a corner. I thought whatever rough patch we'd been going through was behind us. I felt like the luckiest guy alive because my girlfriend seemed to love me more than ever. Then came the party at our place. We'd invited maybe 20 people, mostly our friends, but some family too. I'd been drinking, but not heavily, just enough to feel relaxed. I needed to pee, and our bathroom was occupied, so I headed outside to find a spot in the yard. We had a decent amount of property, and I walked toward the back where some bushes provided cover. That's when I saw them. Sophia was on her knees in front of my cousin. He was leaning back against a tree, and she was sucking. I watched him whisper something to her, and she smiled up at him before putting her mouth back on him. They were completely absorbed in each other. Neither of them noticed me standing there maybe 20 feet away in the darkness. I backed away slowly and went back inside through the side door. My hands were shaking. I went to the bathroom, even though I didn't need to anymore, and just stood there, staring at myself in the mirror, trying to process what I'd seen. I made it through the rest of the party on autopilot. I smiled and talked, and nobody seemed to notice anything wrong. Sophia came back inside about 10 minutes after I did, flushed and happy, and kissed my cheek before going to chat with her friends. My cousin left early. When everyone was gone and we were cleaning up, Sophia was humming and touching my arm as we moved around the kitchen, and I felt sick. I didn't say anything that night. I told myself I needed to think, needed to be sure about what I'd seen, even though there was no ambiguity in my memory. I called my friend Emma the next day and asked if we could meet for coffee. Emma and I had been close since college. She was married to another good friend of mine, Jason, and they'd always been the couple I looked up to. I told her everything while sitting in my car in a parking lot because I couldn't go to a public place and risk breaking down. Emma listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she just said that she was so sorry and that this was screwed up beyond words. She told me I could come stay with her and Jason anytime I needed space. She said I didn't have to decide anything right away, but I also didn't have to stay in that apartment if being there was torture. The permission to not be okay, to not have a plan, to just feel what I was feeling helped more than anything else could have. Over the next few weeks, I started seeing things I'd missed. Sophia had become more protective of her phone, but I'd barely noticed because she was so attentive to me in every other way. She started taking more evening walks alone, which she said helped her de-stress from work. She'd come back from these walks energized and warm, climbing into my lap and kissing my neck and initiating sex. Her underwear drawer had new things in it, lace and styles she'd never worn for me. When I started paying attention, I could track a pattern. Every few days, her mood would lift noticeably, and she'd be extra affectionate for the following day or two. Then it would level off until the next spike. I realized she was seeing him regularly, and the satisfaction from that was bleeding into her interactions with me. The cruelty of it was that her affair had made her a better girlfriend in all the surface ways that mattered. She wasn't distant or cold. She didn't pick fights or withdraw. She was happier and more engaged because she was getting something she needed elsewhere, and that freed her up to be generous with me. If she'd pulled away, I would have known something was wrong immediately. Instead, she overcompensated, and I mistook her guilt-driven attentiveness for genuine renewed affection. Every time we had sex after one of her supposed walks or evening errands, I was sleeping with someone who'd just been with him. The thought made me want to crawl out of my skin. I tried to find concrete proof beyond what I'd seen. I checked her phone once when she was in the shower, but she'd deleted everything. I looked for credit card charges that didn't make sense, but she was too smart for that. I considered following her, but couldn't bring myself to do it. Part of me hoped I was wrong, despite knowing I wasn't. Part of me wanted to gather an airtight case before confronting her. Mostly, I was just paralyzed by the enormity of what this meant for my life. After nearly a month of living with this knowledge eating me alive, I told her we needed to talk. We sat down in the living room and I watched her face carefully as I said I knew something was going on and I needed her to be honest with me. She asked what I meant and looked genuinely confused, which made me angrier because I knew she was calculating whether she could still lie her way out. I asked if there was someone else. She said no. She reached for my hand and told me she loved me and asked where this was coming from. I let her deny it for a few more minutes, and then I told her I saw her with my cousin at the party. Her face went completely blank. She pulled her hand back and sat there staring at nothing for what felt like an hour, but was probably 30 seconds. Then she started crying and admitted it. She said she was sorry. She said she didn't know how it happened. She said it didn't mean anything, but she couldn't stop. I asked how long, and she said about 4 months. I asked if that's why she'd been so different lately, and she nodded. The details came out slowly because I had to keep asking questions. She told me it started at a family barbecue where they'd been drinking and ended up talking alone for a long time. There was attraction, they started texting, it escalated. They'd been meeting up once or twice a week when they could manage it. He had a girlfriend too, so they were both invested in keeping it secret. She said it was purely physical, that there were no feelings involved beyond attraction and excitement. She told me she'd been happier because the affair satisfied something she'd been missing, and that made her more present in our relationship. She actually said it made her a better girlfriend to me. She said she felt less pressure and more freedom, and that's why I'd noticed positive changes in her mood and behavior. I told her I needed space and that I was going to stay with Emma and Jason for a while. She got upset and said we should talk more, that we could work through this, that leaving wouldn't help anything. I packed a bag anyway and left that night. She started texting within an hour asking when I was coming home. Then she called. Then she texted more. I responded to maybe 1 in every 10 messages just to let her know I was alive, but I couldn't handle more than that. I spent 2 weeks at Emma and Jason's place, sleeping on their couch and trying to figure out what I wanted. Emma and Jason were incredibly kind about the whole situation. They gave me space when I needed it and distraction when I needed that instead. Jason told me once that he'd kill my cousin if I wanted him to, which made me laugh for the first time since the party. Emma just listened whenever I needed to talk through the same thoughts on repeat. Sophia kept messaging and calling. She sent long texts about how she loved me and made a mistake and wanted to fix things. She said she'd do anything. When I finally responded with more than a few words, I told her the only way forward was if she completely cut contact with my cousin and if we went to couples therapy. She agreed immediately, which should have made me feel better, but instead made me more suspicious about how quickly she conceded. We started therapy the following week. Our therapist was a middle-aged woman who seemed competent. The first session was mostly intake information and getting a sense of what brought us there. Sophia cried through most of it. The second session was when things got surreal. The therapist asked what we each wanted from therapy and from the relationship going forward. I said I wasn't sure I wanted to stay together, but I was willing to try therapy to see if there was any path forward. Sophia said she wanted to rebuild trust and stay together and work through this. Then she added that she wanted to continue seeing my cousin. I thought I'd misheard her. The therapist's face did something subtle that made me realize I hadn't. Sophia explained that her affair had made her so much happier and more balanced, and she didn't want to give that up. She said she understood it was unconventional, but she thought if we all communicated openly about it, then maybe we could find a way to make it work. She listed reasons why this could be okay. She said lots of couples had open relationships. She said this way there'd be no more lying. She said she loved me and wanted to be with me, but she also needed what she got from my cousin. She said denying that need would just make her miserable, and that would hurt our relationship more in the long run. She said I could see other people too if I wanted. The therapist tried to explain to Sophia why this request was unreasonable given the circumstances. She pointed out that Sophia had violated trust through deception, and that asking to continue the affair wasn't addressing the core issues. She asked Sophia if she understood how her proposal might make me feel. Sophia got defensive and said she was just being honest about her needs and that honesty should count for something. She said cutting off my cousin would feel like a punishment and she'd just end up resenting me. I sat there in complete shock. I couldn't believe she thought there was any universe where I'd agree to this. The therapist kept trying to guide the conversation, but Sophia wouldn't let it go. She spent the rest of the session arguing her position from different angles. By the end, I felt numb. This continued for 3 more sessions. Sophia kept circling back to wanting to maintain the affair, even as the therapist explained repeatedly why that wasn't compatible with rebuilding our relationship. She'd seem to accept it and then bring it up again from a different direction. She suggested he and I could talk and work out an arrangement. She suggested limiting her time with him to once a month. She suggested keeping it going just until we were in a better place, and then she'd stop. Every session I said less and less because there was nothing to say. I'd made my position clear. Either she ended it completely and we attempted to rebuild, or we were done. In the sixth session, Sophia finally agreed to cut off contact with my cousin. She cried and said it would be hard, but she'd do it for us. The therapist looked relieved. I felt nothing. I told them both I didn't trust that she'd actually stop. I explained that she'd spent weeks arguing to keep the affair going and only agreed when it became clear I wouldn't continue therapy otherwise. That didn't make me believe she genuinely wanted to end it. It made me believe she'd tell me what I wanted to hear and then find ways to keep seeing him in secret. Sophia got upset and insisted she meant it, but I could hear the resentment in her voice underneath the promises. The therapist asked what it would take for me to trust Sophia again. I told her I didn't think it was possible. Sophia started crying harder and asking why I even agreed to therapy if I'd already decided to leave. I tried to explain that I'd been willing to see if therapy could help, but watching her fight for weeks to keep fucking my cousin had destroyed any remaining hope I had for us. The therapist attempted to mediate, but there wasn't anywhere productive to go. We scheduled another session, but I knew I was done. I told Sophia I wanted to break up at the next session. She didn't take it well. She said I was giving up. She said she'd agreed to all my terms. She said I was being unfair by not giving her a real chance. The therapist spent most of the hour explaining to Sophia why my position was understandable, but Sophia refused to accept it. She kept saying she'd made a mistake, but she was willing to fix it, and I wasn't letting her. I tried to explain that her fighting to continue the affair for weeks before reluctantly agreeing to end, it wasn't actually fixing anything. It just showed me exactly where her priorities were. We had one final session where we discussed logistics. Sophia was still trying to change my mind even as we talked about who would keep the apartment and how we'd split our stuff. The therapist recommended individual therapy for both of us. Sophia asked if we could do more couples sessions down the line if we both worked on ourselves separately. I said no. The actual breakup took another few weeks to finalize because we had a lease and shared belongings and all the tedious, practical aspects of disentangling your life from someone else's. Sophia texted and called constantly during this period. She sent long messages about memories we'd shared and how good things had been and how we could get back to that. She oscillated between apologizing and getting angry that I wouldn't forgive her. She showed up at Emma and Jason's place, twice, before I told her if she did it again, I'd file a restraining order. Eventually it tapered off. The messages became less frequent. I moved into my own apartment. I blocked my cousin on everything and avoided family events where he'd be present. My family was confused about why I was suddenly distant, but I didn't tell them the full story because I didn't want to deal with the fallout. It's been a few years now. I'm in a new relationship with someone I met through work. She's kind and straightforward, and I'm happier than I've been in a long time. But I'm also hyper-aware of every small change in her behavior in a way I wasn't before. If she's on her phone more than usual, I notice. If her mood shifts, I analyze it. If she's suddenly more affectionate, I question why. I know intellectually that this vigilance isn't fair to her, but I can't seem to turn it off. She knows about what happened with Sophia because I told her early on that I had some trust issues to work through. She's been patient, but I can tell my constant low-level suspicion wears on her sometimes. I'm working on it in therapy. My therapist says it'll take time before I can relax again and trust my own judgment about people. She says what happened with Sophia was particularly destabilizing because all the typical warning signs pointed in the opposite direction. Sophia didn't withdraw or become cold or pick fights. She became more loving and attentive because the affair was making her happy. That's what screws with me the most. I still can't reconcile how she could be so affectionate and present with me while actively betraying me. And I definitely can't reconcile how she thought asking to keep the affair going was a reasonable request. Sometimes I wonder if she understood why what she did was wrong, or if she just resented having to end something that made her feel good. Mostly I try not to think about her at all, but certain things still trigger memories. I haven't been to a family gathering in years. I probably never will if he'll be there. My parents are hurt by my absence, but I can't explain without blowing up family relationships for everyone.
If you liked this story, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. It helps a lot, and you won't miss out on any future stories. Take care and live your best life.